Hello again, everybody. So this is our class video for my John Jay College of Criminal Justice Intro to Guitar class for Wednesday, April 15th. So this is our video for today. So don't forget to email me with the attendance after you watch both part 1 and part 2 for this video. With just a sentence saying you watched both videos for the date, as well as one thing I mentioned in each of the videos. So make sure to stick around for part 2, right? So I still saw a slight trail off of the views for part 2, so some of you are still not making it over to part 2. We're going to be talking about some essential things with the chord strumming. We got a new song, Wish You Were Here, and we're going to get into the rhythm of the strum that you need to watch to get the hang of. That was what many of you missed on the midterm, even if you had the chords correct for Knocking on Heaven's Door with some pauses between changing them, but the actual rhythm that I talked about for the strum for many of you wasn't correct. So it's not just the directions of the pick, down, 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 up, so just down, down, up with any old rhythm. It has to be exactly in rhythm, so that's why I say definitely speak it out loud and play along with me. Make sure your rhythm for that strum is matching what I'm doing with the pick, not just kind of a general loose interpretation of the strum that's not exactly in rhythm. So we're learning specific rhythm strum patterns. So that's generally going to be covered in part 2 when we get to the strum songs outside of the book. So just as important as far as the quizzes and final going forward is to get through the stuff that we're doing on the chord strums outside of the book. All right, so let's talk about, well, just to rehash in Monday's video, although the significant dates for the remainder of the semester are pretty much staying the same as the syllabus, we did switch two very important items going forward, right? So on April 27th, a week from next Monday, that's going to be quiz number 3 instead of the concert paper. So that's the next thing coming up. Quiz number 3 is April 27th, that Monday. And then the concert paper is now due on May 4th. That's a Monday as well. So we just switched the quiz and the papers due a little bit later. So we're going to talk about the concert paper in a little more detail right now here in a minute. But those were the significant dates, and then the final we mentioned as well is going to be now May 18th, just slightly later during that exam week rather than our last regular class. That's going to be the concert. I mean, that's going to be your final exam. So for both quiz 3 and the final exam, it's going to be the same format as the midterm in terms of you uploading a cell phone video or a video of your playing for the assigned pieces and exercises. All right, so I think that worked well, and it's a good way for you to demonstrate what you've been working on. So I've enjoyed watching those for the midterm. The grades for the midterm should be up on Blackboard by the end of the week here. So if you check back in on your Blackboard by Friday, you should be starting to see the grades pop up for the midterm. All right, and then if you have any problems accessing Blackboard, one of you, I think, or one or two mentioned if you had some login issues with Blackboard. Remember, you can always access our class videos just by coming here to YouTube and take a look at our channel right there, what you're watching now. It's just called John Jay Guitar, one word. So just go to YouTube and enter that in the search, John Jay Guitar, one word, and all our videos will pop up, our channel. So this is our channel for this class due to the distance learning, switching online. But you can always just go right to the John Jay Guitar YouTube channel, and you can find all the class videos there. The date for each class is clearly in the title, plus part 1 and part 2. So you'll have no problem finding or accessing any of the classes going forward. All you need is an internet connection and a cell service And then do another reminder, so when you're watching these class videos, make sure that you use some headphones, right? Use some earbuds or headphones. The sound isn't much improved audio-wise. Don't just use the phone speaker, right? Take a second, plug in the headphones or earbuds, and then do set up your book on a chair in front of, or elevate. If you have a music stand, that's ideal, but you got to have your book elevated, right? Don't just put it on the floor and try to kind of watch me and the book on the floor. Get your book out and your music elevated like we do in class on those music stands. If you need to kind of set it on a chair on top of some other books, but you want it up at, you know, about this guitar height level. I'm using kind of a low stand in here so you can see my hands clearly. But elevate the stand, or elevate the book, just like we do in class. All right, and then as far as the concert paper, a couple of you have asked about. I did mention in last class on Monday the new format, right? We mentioned it a couple times actually. The new format is going to be online for the concert paper, so there's no opportunities to go out and hear live music, sadly. At this point and for the foreseeable future. So it's going to be a few options that will be posted to Blackboard under course materials. That also by the end of the week, should be by Friday, check back, and you'll start to see option. It'll say something like Guitar Styles Concert Paper Option 1, and then the artist name, Paco de la Cia, I know is going to be one of them. I think Stevie Ray Vaughan is going to be another one of them. So you'll see probably 3 or 4 different options, or definitely 3 or 4 different options for the concert. But they'll be right there under the course materials in Blackboard up there on Friday. Guitar Styles Concert Report, Option 1, the artist's name, and there'll be a link to a YouTube video. And remember, the YouTube video is going to be a full-length set of music. We're not talking about writing a paper just on one song like we've watched for the Guitar Styles video links so far. This is going to be a live concert, an entire set of music. So at least in the neighborhood of an hour is what you'll need to watch, or it could be slightly over an hour. But usually one set is in the neighborhood of an hour, and then they might take a set break and come play another. But this paper will be based on one set of music. All right, so that's where you'll find, that's the new format for the Guitar Styles paper. There'll be links up on Blackboard to those videos. If you had already gotten out to a live music concert before the coronavirus pandemic struck, then of course you can still write about the live concert that you saw, but it has to be a live concert that you attended this semester. All right, you can't dig into the archives, you know, to a show that you saw last year, or it has to be something this semester. For most of you, though, it's going to be this online video of a concert. That's the best we can do in this situation, but it does mean that you can see up close and in glorious detail, you know, some of the great artists that are no longer with us, obviously, that we wouldn't get a chance to see in person. So you'll get to see a video of one of the greats, all right, and that's the wonders of professionally shot. So you'll see close-ups of their hands. So there'll be a lot to talk about. So let's talk about that now. So now in your syllabus, going back to day 1, the hard copy of the syllabus. Syllabus is also on Blackboard course materials if you can't locate your hard copy. In the back of the syllabus is the description of the concert paper. So we're going to talk about that in more detail right now. All right, so you can pull that out. This is the description that's in the back of the syllabus of the actual assignment. So a couple of these in the beginning obviously are not going to apply. It says attend a live performance by a professional guitar playing musician. We just talked about that is now going to be an online video that I assign. So let me make that totally clear. Once again, so there's no a misunderstanding. You're going to have to pick one of the videos that I assign for and post on Blackboard. So you can't just randomly find a video that you dug up on YouTube of some band. It's got to be one of the ones that I assign for the class, but there will be a few different choices, and then you can choose one of the four to write about. All right, so that's what you're going to write about. Obviously, you can't ask the performer any questions, so that's out the window as well. But you do want to take some notes while you're watching the video. Let me definitely stress that. So, and you can also make use of the pause button, the rewind button, just like we're doing for these class videos. So that's another big bonus. You don't have to rely on your memory. Oh, what was that? The name of that? Or what did he do in that? You can rewatch. You can rewind. You can pause and take some notes while you're watching the video. And again, while you're watching those concert videos, definitely put on some headphones. Ideally, if you could watch it on a computer screen, that's much preferable, but you could, if necessary, watch it on your cell phone, but absolutely plug in some headphones or earbuds. All right, you don't just listen to it on the phone speaker, right? Never really listen to music on just the phone speaker. Always use some headphones, right? And especially for this assignment, you'll notice much more detail and hear infinitely better what's going on. So here's where everything else really still applies. Going down to really the third bullet point here, you want to discuss the instruments used, the performers, the audience, list the program or pieces performed. So that means describe the instrumentation in the band. Is the artist, is the guitar player using a little bit about their instrument? Is it acoustic? Is it electric guitar? Obviously those are the largest categories, but is it a steel string acoustic guitar? Is it a nylon string? So anything that we've talked about in class, you want to tie in as far as instrument, the actual instrument themselves, the differences. If you know the details about the brands and pickup configuration, anything like that, if you anything that you know about the instrument they're using, that's ideal. But I don't want 2 pages about what model of Stratocaster they used. All right, so this is just a brief mention of the instrumentation used in the band, and the instrumentation in the rest of, if they have other performers with them, talk about the instrumentation for briefly, right? So there was a drummer, bass player, keyboards, etc., or there was a second guitarist, or there was a solo performance, but describe the instrumentation of the band or ensemble if there's more than one player. You want to list their names, if at all possible. Usually that will be mentioned in the video. So give the names of the performers, right? The bass player was blank, etc. That's the next bullet point, right? Identify each performer and his or her role in the group. Right, instrument, and then the role in the band that they played. And then the next bullet point, indicate any sections where musicians, particularly the guitarists, may have taken solos or are featured as soloists. So you can discuss, you can go through each of the songs that they played and describe basically a bit about each song, right? In terms of anything of the musical concepts we've covered, the tempo, dynamics, our musical concepts we've covered from the book, dynamics being loud and soft, tempo, moderato, allegro, andante, or it was a slow ballad, it was a medium blues, they did an up-tempo shuffle, but the tempos, instrumentation, dynamics, major and minor, sounded like a major key, had a happy sound. This was a sad minor blues that he went into, or a sad minor flamenco melancholy sound. So the mood, anything we've covered in class in terms of musical concepts, and then guitar technique concepts that we've covered. You definitely want to touch on. Were they using their fingers to pick in the flamenco or classical guitar style like we've been learning? Were they using a pick on the right hand? Were they doing string bending, vibrato that we talked about with blues and B.B. King? Were they using amplification? Was it just a mic'd acoustic guitar? Or were they plugged in? Were they using effects? If you're not familiar with specific effects, again, I don't want 2 pages about describing what they're just the gear, but mention if they were using effects such as we talked about distortion, feedback, wah-wah, things like that. If there was any effects, there may not have been, but if they were using distortion. But any of the guitar concept we discovered, were they strumming, when were they playing chords in the song, when did they go into single note solos, were they using vibrato and bends, strum patterns, were they accompanying themselves while they sang, in different sections of the song. They went into the chorus, then there was a guitar solo and described the guitar solo in some way. So those are the musical elements that you want to be descriptive, right? So the bulk of the paper is a descriptive account of the live concert. All right, so we'll get to more of that after we go through these. Yes, discuss the guitar playing techniques employed, sounds, textures, gear used. And then, this is also important, discuss the audience and its interaction with the musicians. So even if it's a concert video, I'm sure there will be a few shots kind of the panning around the crowd a little bit. Usually in any concert video, you'll get a sense of the audience kind of dynamic. Is it a small club? Is it a large theater? Is it an arena? You know, the venues can differ wildly for live music. Probably it's not going to be a tiny club if it's one of the videos I'm posting, but is it a quiet listening audience? Does it sound like a rowdy dancing crowd? So the audience plays a huge role in the live music experience. So it's one thing you won't be able to participate in, unfortunately, this semester. But the live audience is, you know, practically just as much a part of the live music experience as the actual music that's being played. There's an energy between the audience and the musicians. But were they dancing? Were they just sitting quietly and listening? So you should be able to get a little bit of a sense of that just even from an online video. So the setting of the performance. Obviously we're not getting into food or beverages here, so you can omit that. And then very important, so information and your opinion, interpretation of the experience should be roughly 3 double-spaced pages. And then a separate reference page if necessary, using 12-point font, standard 12-point font, in black ink. So standard double-spaced paper, 3 pages. So that's considered a short paper for a college level. 3 pages is a short paper. So in that case, it's really important to fulfill the length requirement of the paper, at least to get a good grade. So ideally, that's a full solid 3 pages, and then maybe some change on the fourth, 3 plus a little change on the fourth page. So 3 pages is not 2 pages and then a sentence on the 3rd page, right? So if you're aiming to get a good grade, do your best to fulfill the length requirement on any short paper. That's important. So 3 full pages, there should be plenty to write about based upon everything we just talked about and an hour's worth of music. All right, you can do a little background research about the artist, you know, reading a little bit about their bio. It's not a research paper, so you don't need, you know, a stack of books from the library that you need to reference. This is a descriptive concert paper, but it certainly could help to read a little bit. You could go to a website of the artist if there is an official website, or just read a bit about their bio online. But of course, if you're getting background biographical information, it needs to be in your own words, unless you're specifically quoting something. And then if you quote something, you need to reference it with a footnote or endnote, and then have a reference page at the end of the, if you're specifically citing a website or online or written materials, they have to be appropriately notated with footnotes or endnotes in the academic style. That's very important, right? Anything that's quoted. Otherwise, it has to be in your own words, but that's just a brief, just to give you a little bit of background about the artist. But probably 80+%, 85% of the paper needs to be describing what is actually in the video musically. That's what this is all about, right? It's not just rehashing what you read on Wikipedia about this artist, right, for 3 pages. That's not the assignment. It's about the content of the actual live concert and tying in anything that we've covered about the musical concepts broadly, about the specific guitar techniques that we've covered, the different styles that we've talked about, and anything you notice from listening and watching the video. That's by far the bulk of the paper. And and then good grammatically correct writing. So it should be as well written a paper as you can. Make sure your thoughts and your sentences are coherent. You spell check, right? It doesn't just to run the spell check on the program. Don't have there be typos in your paper, right? There's no reason for that on these word processed college papers. Do a spell check, make sure everything's spelled correctly. Punctuation, grammar. And one of the most important things, as I mentioned last time, in your college studies is improving your writing skills. All right, so we can all stand to improve our writing skills, and that should be definitely one of your goals of your education in college for whatever career path you want to embark on. So this is an opportunity. Any papers you write in college actually very important for just improving your writing skills, expressing your ideas clearly in the written format. So new topic. When you change topics, it's got to be a new paragraph. So it's not just a rambling run-on, a stream of consciousness with no separation of paragraphs or anything. So new topic, new paragraph. Make sure it's grammatically correct and as well written as you can. And also make sure that it's this is what we call a objective descriptive paper, meaning that it's describing the content of the video as mentioned rather than the subjective opinion piece, right? So it's not 3 pages about why you didn't like this artist. We all have our different musical tastes. One piece of music could move somebody literally to tears, and another person be yawning, and it would mean nothing to them. So a lot of that is based on our prior experience, geography, what we've grown up listening, our own unique musical tastes. So that's not what this is about. This is an objective description of the concert piece. And then maybe at the very end as a summary, it might work nicely in the final paragraph to talk briefly about what you did or did not like, of your own subjective opinion about what you heard in the concert. But the majority of the paper is objective, descriptive, without your own personal taste. All right, so any other questions about that, you can email me. Obviously you won't be attaching copies of your concert tickets, so that should be pretty clear. And I would definitely suggest, if you want to get a head start on it, like I said, the links will be up by the end of this week, before things get too hectic at the end of the semester when a lot more things might be due. By all means, you could write it this coming week. You can certainly write it as soon as the links are up there, if you have more time in your schedule. But it will actually be due on that May the 4th Monday. All right, so that's the concert paper. That's usually a fun, enjoyable way to give your grade a boost. Which, if you're in need of boosting your grade in the class, concert paper is a pretty easy way if you fulfill the length requirements and talk about everything we've done, everything we just talked about, and you make a solid effort. It should be a good way to give your grade a boost. So make sure you do it as well as you can. It is 20% of the grade for the class. All right, so that's the concert report paper. So let's get into some playing here, shall we? So we'll jump back into the node book here. We got into the 5th and 6th strings on Monday. So before we do that, let's tune up. Make sure that you are in tune, right? As I mentioned on Monday, we spent quite a bit of time talking about how to use tuner apps. So some of you on the midterm, if you were way out of tune, I may have been fairly generous with that in the grading as far as the midterm. If it is something I mentioned to you about being so out of tune on the midterm, I am giving people the opportunity to redo the midterm if you want to feel like you could play it much better in the next week or two, or if you want to fix those tuning issues, if that's all that was the problem in your video, you played fine and everything, but you were way out of tune, like I mentioned, fix the tuning, post another video, and I'll give you a chance to boost that grade for the midterm. All right, but email me if you'd like to do that, so I know that you've reposted it. But make sure that you're in tune. That's part of the class. But going forward on the next quiz and the final, I am going to definitely deduct if you're more significantly if you're way out of tune. That's part of learning the instrument. You got to be able to tune yourself. And at this point, we've covered it quite extensively, right? There's a video for the 5/0 system that we talked about at the beginning of the semester. That video is still up in the course materials. We talked about last time using the tuner app, and also, in addition to those, use your ears and tune along with, make sure your strings match me like we're going to do right now. In every single one of these class videos, I'm going to play my open strings of the guitar, so you can pause, listen to that open first string E, make sure your string sounds the same as mine. If it does not sound the same as mine, you are not in tune. All right, so make sure you are in tune going forward. It's not going to sound good to anybody listening, no matter how well you play, if the guitar's not in tune. So that's just part of playing this instrument we got to struggle with, right? The piano players, don't have to deal with. We've got to tune these things ourselves, and that's just part of an essential part of learning the instrument. Essential part of this class is being able to be in tune. All right, so here we go. First string open, first string E. And the second string B. Third string G. Fourth string D. Fifth string A. Sixth string E. Alright, so pause those, go back and play those again if you need to continue to wrestle with your tuning. Alright, but be in tune. Alright, so here we go on to the fifth string. Let's go to exercise 14. We learned these new notes, right? So now we've finally gotten through all 6 strings on the guitar, right? So we know all the notes on the 6 strings in first position here on the guitar. So you should be proud of that fact that you've accomplished that this semester. If you know all these notes in first position now and you can read them. And then the only thing left to do is fill in the sharps and flats in first position, which is what we'll get to not this week, but coming down the road. But we've covered all 6 strings here. So just to recap, the 5th string, new notes, A. This is on page 30, notes on the 5th and 6th string. A, the 2nd ledger line, right on the line. Memorize how that one looks in the book. And then B, 2nd fret, that one's on the space. B, right below the 1st ledger line. And then our C, 3rd fret. That is on in the treble clef. That is right on the line on the 1st ledger line. C. So that was the 5th string notes. We actually already covered those in our A minor scale, so those should be already familiar. But now they're going to be all over these songs here. And then on the 6th string, low E. 6th string open. That's way down 3 ledger lines in the space below. That's the lowest note on the guitar in standard tuning. 6th string, and F is on the line. So these are easy to mix up, these 6 string notes visually. So you really want to take some extra time to really study those. The F is on the line, on that 3rd ledger line. All these ledger lines down there can be a little harder to keep straight than the notes inside the staff. And then the G on the space below the 2nd line. So don't mix that one up with the low E. The G is on below the 2nd ledger line. Take a look at that. So those were the 3 new notes on the 6th string. Alright, so you'll need to spend some time with that and just playing the notes themselves and studying those until they are familiar. Alright, but let's go into exercise 14. We'll do this one again slowly. Exercise 14, I'll play your part with you here. So this is all thumb, starting on A on the 5th string. This is 30 beats per minute, real slow. 3, 4. Here's our B. Third line. So I would say the hardest part in this piece is probably that bottom line, the third measure on the bottom line, the third line. That little pattern there. So any spot, remember we talked about the best way to practice is to circle a spot that gives you trouble and isolate that, play it a couple times in a row, a few times in a row until it feels comfortable, and then go back to the beginning. So that's definitely a way to practice. Let's bump it up today. We'll try to get it up. If you need to stay at that 30 speed, rewind that again, play along with that super slow 30 speed until you can do that. And then let's bump it up to about 40 here again, slightly faster. Same one, 14. Do it once more with me playing your part, and then I'll accompany on the chords. Here we go, 3, 4. Looking ahead on these long notes. Get ready for the next one. He says 4 here with the fingering. So let's try and hear the chords underneath that. So you're going to play that same part. If you look at my part, the accompaniment, it's really just whole note chords. So then it's up to you to keep a steady quarter note on top of that. So we'll use the metronome. So same tempo. I'm going to now play the accompaniment part, and you're going to do the melody over the top of that. All right? Same thing. 2. This is exercise 14 again. 3, 4. Melody again now, same tempo, 14 again, 3, 4. Stroke here, free strokes on the thumb. E. reminder about the right hand. We talked about last class on Monday. Make sure you're doing free strokes. So on this song with the thumb, that means that you're not coming to rest like this on the 5th string. All right, I'm not coming to rest right on that 5th string or the 4th string like this. I'm clearing the 5th string with my stroke. All right, that's a free stroke. So I'm talking to you. Yes, you. Don't be doing rest strokes with your thumb. I've seen some people who played well on the midterm, but they did all rest strokes. So make sure that you are not doing that, right? So in your thumb strokes, you're doing all free strokes, clearing over the 5th string like that, moving from this big knuckle like this, and following through on the outside of the index finger. I also saw some people, doing this thumb under. Kind of coming inside the cave here underneath the fingers with your stroke. Thumb more to the left and make sure it follows through on the outside of the index finger. So you maintain the natural hand position of your hand with the thumb on the left. So a little further to the left with your thumb. And some of you, if you're tucking your thumb in there and doing thumb under. And then higher off the strings. Remember, so this is different than, I'm not resting the palm like here as if I'm using a pick with this classical guitar finger technique, higher off the strings. So there's a couple, 2 or 3 inches, about 3 inches off above the strings to my palm. All right, and nothing is planted on the wood. There's nothing touching the wood of the guitar. My fingers are only on the strings. All right, and the same thing goes with the fingers. Don't be doing free strokes like this. Yes, you. Don't do free stroke. Don't do rest strokes on your fingers. All right. So if I've mentioned that to you, take heed, right? Because you don't want to be playing with all rest strokes. Right? So it's only a certain technique that we use for certain things to bring out a melody note above the accompaniment. We don't use rest strokes all the time. So don't get in that habit. Your normal stroke, the vast majority of the time, is a free stroke. So I'm clearing over the string that's lower with my follow through. All right, so I'm reiterating that again because it's definitely a habit that some of you need to get out of. So let's do that one now one more time. This is 14. And one last time today, and then we'll get on to the Fandango. So let's try to see if we can get it up to 50 now today. All right, so if you're still at that 30 tempo, like I said, rewind that one until that feels comfortable. Well, let's see if we can bump it up to 50 now today. This is still not up to tempo. Eventually you want to be something like... shooting for eventually, but by next week, the end of next week. But this is a little faster at 50. So here's the melody at 50. 3, 4. Let's look ahead to the Fandango, the next one on the next page. This one's a bit more challenging because of these eighth notes in here, like we talked about. So this is definitely going to take some practice to get down. Hopefully you've been, make sure you're doing practice in addition to these class videos, right? Just like we did in our regular class, the class videos is when we come together and you play along with me and you work on the new things, but then it's still essential for you to be practicing on your own every day, like we've talked about all semester long. All right, the goal is half an hour to an hour a day of individual practice time. That's every day on average, 7 days a week. So just playing along in the class is not the goal here. This is just like going to our regular classes, but then it's essential that you still be practicing every day to improve on the guitar, and that's the expectation for the class on average, half an hour to an hour every day. So this Fandango definitely going to take some practice to get the eighth note sections here. So let's go back to 30 beats per minute here, and let's just do the first two lines again, real slow. So here we go. This is in 3/4. So this is a waltz. This Fandango again is a Spanish dance rhythm. 1, 2, real slow. 3, Fandango. So if you're not able to keep up at that slow tempo yet, I would pause and just go back and review the notes. And take a few minutes to just go back and review the notes, 5th string, 4th string, 6th string, until you're able to keep that slow, steady rhythm there. All right, so pause, make use of the rewind, pause, go back and review in the book as need be but that's where you should be up to, is being able to play a steady, slow beat on this song at that quarter note tempo, at least for today. All right, and then let's look at that third line. This is where the eighth notes come in, or the string of eighth notes, rather. So this is the same notes like we talked about as our A natural minor scale. And here's where I want you to use index middle on this part. It's going to be much smoother when you try to speed it up. So alternating index middle. Even though we're on the 5th string and the 4th string here, use index middle on this third line. So this is just going right up the A minor scale, A natural minor scale. Not all the way, obviously, but just the first 6 notes that we learned in the A natural minor scale. Just straight in order from A to F. And then that third or fourth measure here is probably the hardest spot. They alternate. That's going to take some practice. So let's do that whole line slowly. This is the third line of the Fandango. Right to the third line. Use index middle alternating on this part. 2, 3. not able to do that, don't worry. Just keep working on it until you can. Let's just play the notes there even slower. So as if this is a very slow quarter note, something like this. From the third line, this will be our eighth note now. Through third line, these are eighth notes now. So now our quarter will be super slow. This pattern here goes up by a third. It's already down by a third. F, G, and then we're safely out of the woods there in the fourth line, back to quarter notes. So that was playing the eighth notes at a super slow tempo. So rewind that little snippet for line 3 as many times as you need to just get the sound of that line in your ears really slowly. And then let's go back to our 30 and play it straight through at this super slow 30. 3, 2, from the top, fandango, beginning. 2, 3. B. This part gonna be all thumb. And 3. 2 and 3. Now G, 3rd fret. E. Third line, fingers. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2. Again, same thing. 1 and 2 and so that measures exactly like the first measure. Last line. Back to quarters. G there. So that's the fandango. We're going to do it one more time, but just another reminder to stay tuned for part 2. So this part 1 is going to run out shortly here. So no, don't be getting up and walking out of class here. We're not finished. We're still going to get to our strum on Wish You Were Here, which is going to be really important because we're going to learn the rhythm to that strum pattern today, which you do not know yet, and you will have to be able to do. Alright, so remember that part 2, just as important as part 1, we're going to get to the strum songs that we learn outside of the book, generally in part 2. So stay tuned here in a couple minutes when this one runs out, and make sure you go on to part 2. So before we do that, though, one more time through the fandango. we're going to bump it up to 40. We're not going to get this anywhere near up to tempo this week. Just keeping it slow and steady is our goal this week. Working out the right notes and the right rhythms at a very slow tempo, and then gradually working up the speed. So by the end of next week, maybe not quite this fast. Pretty ambitious tempo for the end of next week, but that would be our goal ideally for this one by the end of next week. But one more time, really slow before we get to our chords. This is slightly faster than we did before. This is 40 beats per minute. I'll still just do the melody with you. 1, 2, fandango. Our 8 notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and stay with us here as best you can. Same thing exactly again. 1 and 2 and 3 and fourth line. Alright, so that's the fandango, that third line. If you're not able to do that yet in rhythm, you know what you need to do. Practice that slow and go back and rewind and work that out. I would say circle that third line in general and just practice that third line. Remember, it's just the A natural minor scale ascending. So if you can do that A natural minor scale, you can play this. First measure and the third measure are identical. And then so probably just that last 2 measures in that line are maybe the scary part. So you just need to work those 2 measures over and over until it's comfortable. Alright, that's how we improve and progress. So now let's go to our chords here. So like I mentioned, on Monday, use the pick for the chords. Remember, that was an essential course material going back to the syllabus on day 1. You should have gotten some picks. If you still don't have picks, get some. It's not too